Right, year 8. Welcome. Welcome to the second lesson of the Sikhism topic. Thank you very much for doing all the key terms test last lesson. And I hope you've begun to learn a little bit more about Guru Nanak, who is a very important person in Sikhism, the founder of Sikhism, the person who found the core knowledge on which other Sikh beliefs are based on. In today's lesson, we're going to look at one specific of his belief, and by the end of it, hopefully not only will you understand it more, but you can think about how you can put it into practice in your day-to-day life as well, if you wish. Of course, we don't prescribe you to believe in anything religious, but if you think that actually his ideas can be applied to your life, and that would be a good idea as well, why not? You don't have to be a Sikh to do that. All right, before we do that though, a recap. I'm going to start by going through the PowerPoints for our recap quiz and so on and so forth. You don't necessarily have to have that PowerPoint open. It's just for your reference if you want to have it in parallel to this video as well, because everything on that PowerPoint will be shown on this screen as well. And there should be a Word document with all the questions available as well. Maybe not. We'll have a look in a moment. Right, quiz. The title of the date is Lalo and Bhago. So if you want to put the title on, you should do that. If you're working on a Word document or if you're using pen and paper, make sure it's underlined and it's got the date on. Laser pointer, that sounds good. So that's the title. Right, quick recap from the last time then. Remember, if I am going too quick, you have a pause button. It's got 2 bars, yeah, vertical bars on either side. So you can use that to give you some time to underline the title or the date. I think it's on this side. Assuming you're ready, you need to fill in the gaps. If you can't remember the answer, that's fine, as long as you remember it at the end of the lesson. Right, number 1. Guru Nanak is the founder of... 2. God spoke to Guru Nanak in a... 3. God said that there is neither nor... 4. Guru means. Now, if you're finding this a bit difficult, there are some options coming up. If you don't want to see the options just yet, make sure you click the pause button. If you're really finding it difficult, then the options should come up in a moment. There they are. There are the options. Remember, if you need more time, you can always use the pause button. Make an educated guess if you're absolutely unsure. You can always change them by purple pen later. Right, the answers are going to come up soon, so if you want more time, remember to use that pause button. Alright, here are the answers then. So, for question number 1, Guru Nanak is the founder of Sikhism. Sikhism is your answer. There it is. 2. God spoke to Guru Nanak in a river. River is your answer. 3. God said that there is neither Hindus nor Muslims. 4. Guru means teacher. Yes, and in fact we still use the word guru now to show someone who can teach us something, don't we? So, might be worth changing your answer. Make sure those are in your notes correct at some point, and then we're ready to dive into new content. There is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. There is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. What is Guru Nanak trying to teach us? How can we apply it to our day-to-day life? Turn to your worksheet and answer those questions with your own opinion. There is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. Well, it's quite a puzzling quote, isn't it? Well, what is Guru Nanak trying to teach us? What Guru Nanak is trying to teach us is that, well, people are all the same. We're all born the same. We have the same background. Okay, people then choose to belong to different groups or have labels put upon them. That's like something that people make up themselves, because the bottom line, the most basic thing, is that we're all human. We all belong to that category of human. Um, the main reason why he says that, just to go into a bit more detail, and I don't expect you to necessarily have done that in your answer, is that in India at that time, people are split into people who believe in Islam and people who believe in Hinduism. And these people often fight, they often argue with each other. So I guess what Guru Nanak is stressing as well is that we don't need to label ourselves as different groups or different gangs or different religion. And just because someone is different to us, use that as a reason to fight. And as to the second question, how can we apply it to our day-to-day lives? Well, we can start with not disliking anyone else, no hatred. Let's not divide other people from us. Let's not give them label X and give us label Y and then have a go at them because of it. And let's try and treat everyone equally, or equally in the sense that we don't treat someone with more favor and treat other people more harshly. We treat everyone equally in that sense. Guru Nanak is stressing the idea of equality, and this quote really stresses that. This quote, there is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. There are no distinctions between people. Now, just to recap the context in which he says that, we're now going to watch a video. I think this is the main task on your worksheets. Okay, the video about his disappearance into the river. There's a link below this video in the comments just there. So you can click on video 2 and access this video. And once you have watched it, you can come back to this video and click play again. So I'm going to say see you in a bit. Make sure you pause this video, click out of this video, and watch video 2 on there. Okay, I hope the video is a bit of a recap of what you have done in the last lesson about Guru Nanak's life. And I hope it got you thinking about what Guru Nanak means in the quote, there is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. Let's have a look at the answers, shall we? And I'll tell you what I think. Now, if you have a different answer to me, that doesn't mean your answer is wrong. It might just be a difference in opinion. The key here, as with most things in RS or other humanities subjects that you do, is that your opinion is relevant and based on facts. In this case, it is based on what Guru Nanak has said, or based on Guru Nanak's India at the time of Guru Nanak. That's the key thing. Okay? So this is what I think, and you're very welcome to add some of these points to your own answer if you wish. Actually, no, not if you wish. Just, yeah, add some of these points. Maybe use a purple pen or a purple ink. Okay, question 1. Guru Nanak's words mean everyone is equal. This is a bit of a repetition from what we've had earlier. Guru Nanak is saying Hindus, Muslims, they're just labels. We're all human at the core. So in that sense, we're all equal and should be treated with equal respect. So labels are just labels. We're all human and we should all treat others equally and be treated equally. I don't think he necessarily means that you should give everyone chocolates even if they don't like chocolate. I don't think he necessarily means that. I think he just means that you should have an open mind and shouldn't treat people better or worse, depending on whether you like them or not, depending on if they're in the same family as you or same friendship group as you, and things like that. So, how would this make India more peaceful? Question 2. How would this make India more peaceful? In India at the time, arguably at India even now, there's a lot of conflict between different religious groups. If people care less about which religious group they're in and just consider them as labels, then they clearly won't treat people of the other religious groups worse. They won't want to fight them because they are of a different religious group. So that would make India more peaceful. Question 3. In your opinion, what actually happened in the river? Some of you probably put down nothing. Yeah, maybe nothing happened in the river. Make sure you explain why you think that. Maybe you would say, well, he did disappear, but he wasn't actually under the water for 3 days. He was just gone wandering and hiding somewhere, and he had a thought. Yeah, I can see that point. I think, if I want to believe that this is true, I would say that he actually disappeared and thought to himself, and this idea came to his head. I think there's some truth in this story, some falsehoods in this story, so I don't think it's totally true. I don't think it's totally false. I think he did go away from his family, and maybe he did go to the river. I'm not entirely sure there will be a God to speak to him because I'm not sure if God exists, but I'm sure the idea might have come to his head and he had a realization while he was away. Alright, question 4. Should people follow Guru Nanak's advice even if it did not come from God? Well, I think if you believe that what Guru Nanak is saying makes sense, if you think believing in his beliefs makes you a better person, if that's what you want to do, then sure, why not? I can see the counter arguments, like you might say, oh, I'm Christian or I'm an atheist, so if I believe in what Guru Nanak says, then that would make me a Sikh, and I'm not a Sikh. Yeah, sure, but in the Ten Commandments it says thou shalt not steal. So if you believe that you shouldn't steal from someone, does that make you a Christian? I don't think it necessarily does. I think if you believe that something is right, then you should believe it. And even people who are nasty can occasionally say something that is worth believing for you. So that's my answer to question 4. Now, question number 5, I think it's a stretch and challenge question. You could have chosen to skip it, but if you decided to answer it, then let's see whether you have the same opinion as I do. So, Guru Nanak cares more about how you behave than how much you worship God. I think he says the most important thing is to follow the way of God, right? So when you follow the way of God, when you follow what God tells you to do, then I presume that means you're being a good person. So, and I think, yeah, I do think through Guru Nanak's words, he's saying that how you behave is more important, not what sort of labels you have. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. A lot of different religions actually tells its followers to behave in very similar ways anyway. It has very similar beliefs about being a good person. So I definitely see Guru Nanak's point there. Being good is the best way of respecting God. Here's a map I found of India around the time of Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak famously says, yeah, that's right, he said, there is neither Hindus nor Muslims now. The territory in red symbolizes the territory that the Muslims were occupying at the moment, and the territory in this sort of bluish color symbolizes the territory that the Hindus are occupying at the moment. The Sikhs are here, so they come from the area that is in northwest of India, actually in modern day Pakistan, in an area called the Punjab. So in any case, there was a whole culture of people called the Indians, if you like, and Guru Nanak would have been part of that culture. And as you've known from the previous video, he says there is neither Hindus nor Muslims. As we've explored in the last, in the discussion of the questions that were there earlier, Guru Nanak uses that to express the idea that everyone is equal. So what we're going to see now is how he really illustrates that through a story that he's actually a main character in. Right, let's introduce you to the story of Lalo and Bhago then, where you've got a character called Lalo, as you can see on this screen there, who's a carpenter, as you can see on the screen there. There's also another character called Bhago, which he's going to interact with. Now, before we watch the video, I just want to show you what you need to do, and in a moment you need to record a story. You need to record the story of Lalo and Bhago's meeting with Guru Nanak. And these are some of the words that I would like you to use, or at least make sure you address. I'll tell you more about it, but the key thing is to make sure you know you've picked up enough from the story to retell it. And only if you're able to retell it might you make Guru Nanak's teaching more easy to understand for yourself and for other people as well. So the story of Lalo and Bhago, thanks to our friends in TrueTube, you've got that video made for you there. So have a look for the link on the description and have a look at the video. We'll try and update the description if we see there's any problem with the video, and so make sure you pause the video now and watch the video. Those parallel vertical lines here, pause and watch the video. Let's go and meet Lalo and Bhago. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the story there. Really interesting story and very well told by our friends at TrueTube as well. Well, what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is to treat everyone with kindness, no matter their background. So let's walk through the story. Let's talk it through together, and then we'll see how that's how the moral comes through the story. So Nanak sets an example with
how he treats Lalo. Even though he's more important than Lalo, he comes and he chooses to stay with him, not an obvious choice, and he treats him with respect. He doesn't necessarily look down on the fact that he can't provide some of the things that other hosts in the area can provide Nanak. He was actually very grateful for all the things that he receives. So the way that Nanak treats Lalo sets the right example. Whereas the way that Bhago treats Guru Nanak the morning afterwards by saying, why didn't you stay with me? You would have had a much better experience. It's not the right way of treating other people and doesn't show appreciation. So Nanak sets an example by treating people with kindness and by appreciating what he's got in front of him. Let's think about it in another way. Lalo treats everyone with respect. He treats Guru Nanak with respect, and he is genuine about it. He is fussing about his guests, he's worried about doing things wrong, and he has an emotional connection with people in front of him. Bhago only treats people who he feels is important, and you can really tell when he's just being polite if he's trying. He's not even genuine with how he is treating other people. So on the one hand, you've got Lalo, who's genuine and is nice and is polite. You've got Bhago, who is a bit arrogant and who, even if he's being nice, he doesn't necessarily mean it. And to show that Lalo is the one example we should follow, when Guru Nanak squeezes the bread, milk comes out of it, and that's a quite nice, pure, good thing. Whereas when he squeezes Bhago's bread, it's not even bread made by Bhago himself, blood comes out of it to show how dark he is, or how dark his heart is. Now, as with a typical religious story like this, Lalo is rewarded, he is treated with respect by other people, and the story has a good outcome for him. For Bhago, he isn't necessarily treated badly, although he was embarrassed and he was taught a lesson, but the good thing is that he changed his ways afterwards. He was taught a lesson. And the moral of this story, I suppose, is, well, actually, if you're someone like Lalo and you treat people nicely and you're genuine anyway, the moral of the story is that you're a good person and you will be rewarded. Whereas if you're a bit more like Bhago generally, then the lesson for you is that you will be called out and what you're doing is not right in Guru Nanak's eyes. Given that most of us probably sit either end of that extreme, of the extremes that Lalo and Bhago have shown, I suppose the lesson for all of us is to be more like Lalo and less like Bhago at his worst. You can still change. I mean, Bhago changed. So be more like Lalo, be more genuine, be more respectful. We all tell stories to try and make a point. Let's think about religious ones first. I mean, what sort of stories have we met where we're trying to prove a point or trying to teach some sort of a lesson? Well, there's the Good Samaritans one, the one which Jesus tells you you need to be a nice person and to help other people. That's a pretty important one. There are other sort of stories as well. I'm sure if you want to make a point, you might use an example by telling a story. Here, the story of Lalo and Bhago is exactly a story that is being used to make a point. So when you tell the story, I don't just want you to tell the story. I want you to try and reflect the points that Guru Nanak is trying to make, and the points that Sikhs would be trying to make when they tell the story. The key idea that equality is important, and it's important to treat other people with kindness. Now, the simple way of doing this activity is to write the story, making sure you tick off all the words that are used. That's one way of doing it. But why not try and be creative? You could make a storyboard. You could get people in your house together to act it out. Or maybe create a little session, like maybe one person can ask the other person what's happening, and you can be the person who tells them the story, like a sort of storytelling session. Yeah, you can record your voice as well. Don't feel you need to actually write the story out, but try and think of a way to record this story using all the words that are included. Using all the words that are included, because then you will know all the parts of the story that you need to know. And also, moral, or what's the point of the story? Make sure you try and include that. The best storyteller would not just include the moral in the end, but try and give hints of it during the story as well, so that you really stamp the point of what the story is about. Okay? So, I look forward to reading, listening, and seeing what sort of stories you've produced.
If you have less than 10 minutes left of the 100 minutes you have given to do RS, simply skip to the last 3 minutes of this video. There is no need to work for more than 100 minutes. Look for the last page on your worksheet.
Now, if you've finished the last, if you've already done your reenactment, or you've written your story, or you've recorded it, then that's great. This activity, do it if you have time. If you don't have time, don't do it. There's about 10 minutes remaining of this lesson. If you find you're already at 100 minutes, don't feel you need to go beyond the standard length of a lesson, because you know, I know we're all trying our hardest in these distant learning times, and there's no need for that. If you have time, though, rewrite the story into modern settings. So, this is a story about equality and about treating people nice. You can write your own story that illustrates that point. Now, sometimes I find that actually just giving this instruction quite difficult. So, why don't you think about times where you feel you've been done badly, or you've not been treated fairly, and maybe at those times you'd be thinking, what if something happens so that it becomes fair again. So let's say, I don't know, when you bump into someone like a friend or family friend or something, and they gave your siblings, your brother or your sister, 2 sweets, and they only gave you 1, and you feel really bad about it. What would you like to have happened that would make the situation fairer? Try that as an idea. But remembering the key theme of today's lesson is about Guru Nanak's message of equality and of being good to other people. Whatever stories you write, try and see if you can really exaggerate that point. And sometimes it's easier just to forget the story of Lalo and Bhago and just write a story completely anew. Of course you can do that. Only do it if you have time. If you spend lots of time telling a really good story of the Lalo and Bhago story, if you spend lots of time on that and it came out really nice, then that's great. There's no need to do this if you run out of time. Okay. Some of the things that you might want to think about if you want to plan your own story then. This is something that you could do, whether you've got your own story or whether you've done your own version of Lalo and Bhago's story. Think about how you tell it. It's something that religious leaders do all the time. If you're a churchgoer, when you go to church, you get a story every time you go to church. It's called a sermon. And I think it's the same going to other sort of religious places as well. If you think of it, assemblies are the same. When you go to an assembly, ideally you would be told a story with a lesson at the end. Think of those situations and think, how would you tell your story? And maybe try and read it to someone else. Or if you've done a storyboard, if you've done a film, just show it to someone else.
Right, so we come back to the quotes. There are neither Hindus nor Muslims, and the question, what changes can you make to your life to include the idea of equality and of treating people kindly and nicely, as long as they treat you well as well? If you do believe in that, you could think about maybe how even if some people might find it, even if you might find some other people annoying, they might just be living life in their way, and you might just be living life in your own way. So maybe think about treating them nicely. Don't be nasty to other people, or be especially nice to other people just because they like certain football teams or certain bands, or because they have certain hobbies. Understand that we as humans can develop any sort of interests and any sort of things that you might have as well. Sorry, I think I meant to have asked you to think about that question first, but I'm sure you've been thinking about it a lot anyway. And if you do have any other answers to that questions, or if you're inspired by this, do let us know. In the meantime, it's almost 8 o'clock on a Thursday, and it's Captain Tom Moore's 100th birthday today, as well as a few other people's birthday today. So I better go out and clap for the NHS and to celebrate. In the meantime, I hope you found today's lesson useful, enjoyable, and the main thing is, even if you're a bit confused about everything, that it got you thinking as well. If you do have any problems though, let us know. Send a message to your teachers, and hopefully we'll be able to help you. Right, Spreader Dash, it's almost time. Have a good time, look after yourself, and let us know if we can help, alright? Enjoy!